Ibundioma Munte. You're welcome to my African Village TV, your guide to the hidden treasures of Africa. A vast continent of breathtaking beauty, rich resources, and diverse cultures. But the Africa we know today, a patchwork of nations divided by borders, is not the Africa that existed for millennia. To understand how this transformation occurred, we must look back in time to an era when outsiders first set their sights on African wealth and began a centuries-long process of division and exploitation. So how, you might ask? By putting different African groups against one another and disrupting existing power structures. European traders sowed the seeds of division that would bear bitter fruits in the centuries to come. But why was dividing Africa so important to the European powers? The answer lies in Africa's immense natural wealth: gold, diamonds, oil, timber, and so much more. Africa had resources that European nations coveted. A united Africa would be too strong to easily exploit. But a fractured continent of squabbling nations, that was a different story entirely. You get the point now. And so, in 1884, Europe's most powerful nations gathered in Berlin to literally carve up the African continent. Over the course of 3 months, they drew lines on maps, dividing territory with no regard for existing ethnic groups, languages, or power structures. The Berlin Conference formalized the scramble for Africa, a period of rapid colonization that would reshape the continent forever. These artificial borders threw together groups with little in common while splitting apart others who had coexisted for centuries. The new colonial territories were designed not for the benefit of Africans, but to serve European interests. This divide and conquer strategy made it easier for colonial powers to exploit Africa's resources and maintain control. But how did this division play out in practice? Let's look at a few examples that illustrate long-lasting impacts of Europe's meddling in Africa. The Sahel region of Africa stretches across the continent just south of the Sahara Desert. Countries in this area, like Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, have long struggled with poverty, corruption, and insecurity. These problems can be traced back to the artificial borders and extractive colonial systems put in place by European powers. However, in recent years, a new generation of leaders in these countries has begun to push back against this legacy of division by working together and prioritizing African interests over those of former colonial powers. They've made progress in combating terrorism and promoting economic development. One exciting initiative is the proposed Sahel Passport, a document that would allow free movement between countries in the region. This is just a small taste of what a more united Africa could achieve. Now let's turn our attention to Nigeria, Africa's most populous country and a prime example of how colonial division continues to impact the continent today.
I just found out something astonishing about the origin of Nigeria that shocked the hell out of me. Nigeria was never meant to be a country. It was something else entirely. In this video, I'm going to tell you what I discovered. Oh, and I want to acknowledge Burna Boy for bringing my attention to this in his song Another Story on his album African Giants.
Another story.
Thank you for inspiring this video, and all of you, let Burna Boy know that he got to me and now I'm sharing this information with you. The creation of Nigeria was never about democracy, never about Christianity. It was about money, business and profit. None of it for us. Pay attention. The area now known as Nigeria was called the Slave Coast up to 1870. This was the point at which the British had stopped slave trading and moved on to palm oil as their primary commodity out of Nigeria. One of the main suppliers of palm oil was the Benin Kingdom. Everyone wanted palm oil, and especially the British. A man called George Goldie set up the United African Company in 1879, which was then changed to the National African Company. He structured the palm oil business in the Niger Delta region, and by 1884 he had a monopoly that the British could exploit. So in 1886, Goldie violated the agreement he had made with the chiefs and moved his operations into River Niger and Benue. The company was also renamed to Royal Niger Company. Goldie tricked the chiefs into signing unfair trade deals, giving Goldie exclusive rights to export palm oil instead of what the chiefs thought would be free trade. These contracts were written in English, a language we didn't understand, and based on laws that were not our own. This is similar to the land negotiations done with Native Americans in what is now known as the United States of America, where deals were done via contracts in English with laws that had nothing to do with the Native Americans. There was a meeting called the Berlin Conference in 1884 to 1885, set up by Germany's first Chancellor, Otto von Bismarck. This was where colonial powers discussed how to carve up Africa and structure trade across the pieces of our continents they would take. We were not part of these conversations. At this conference, the Kingdom of Opobo was given to Britain. When King Jaja of Opobo tried to export his own palm oil, he was accused of obstructing commerce and then exiled. How crazy is that? And on his way home in 1891, he was poisoned with a cup of tea. Guys, I couldn't make this stuff up. The Jaja of Opobo story made other chiefs wary of their deals with the British. King Koko of Nembe Brass was one of them. He tried to take down the Royal Niger Company and attacked the company headquarters in Akassa, Bayelsa on January 29, 1895. King Koko captured 60 white men and lost 40 of his own soldiers. He used the 60 hostages to demand he be allowed free trade, the agreement he believed he had with the British company. They refused and he killed 40 of his hostages. The British Royal Navy retaliated by leveling the city of Brass completely on February 20th, 1895. King Koko went into exile and the British not only took control of the palm oil he once had, but also fined the people of his kingdom £500 as well as confiscating their weapons. Tragically, King Koko committed suicide in exile in 1898 after being branded an outlaw by the British company that had taken his kingdom, palm oil, and reputation. The Royal Niger Company sold its territory to the British government for £865,000 in the late 1800s. This territory was known as Nigeria. In 1914, the Southern Protectorate and Northern Protectorate was combined by Lord Lugard, and like that, the Royal Niger Company was rebranded as a country which would gain independence on October 1st, 1960. And Lugard is a street in Nigeria that still exists today. The Royal Niger Company changed its name to the Niger Company Limited, and it was then acquired by Unilever. Unilever still operates in Nigeria to this day. And that, my brothers and sisters, is how Nigeria came to be. We have a long way to go to fix the country, but we won't ever have a hope and a solution to our problems if we don't know how they started.
Nigeria. Again, if I were you, I will download this information, digest it. I will watch it over and over and over and over again. And I will share it so that everybody can see it. We need to all start having these conversations.
Coast in the smiling coast. Africa's best from land to toast.
Are you tired of paying more for less? Introducing Coast Food and Beverages, your gateway for the best quality and healthiest foods and drinks. With Coast, you can buy much more with less. We source the finest organic produce like cereals, dairy, fresh, natural and healthy drinks and all kinds of beverages and deliver them nationwide for your convenience. Enjoy the unbeatable taste and nutritional value of our premium European foods and beverages in Africa. We have everything you need to elevate your meals and gatherings. Visit Atcoast head office at number 44 Box Bar Road, Banjul for your premium customer services. Atcoast. Moving on. Decades later, ethnic and regional tensions continue to simmer in Nigeria. Politicians often exploit these divisions for their own gain, perpetuating a cycle of mistrust and conflict that serves no one but those in power. As we've seen, the legacy of European colonization and division continues to shape Africa today. But it's important to remember that this is not the natural state of things. For thousands of years before colonization, Africa was home to great empires, advanced civilizations, and diverse peoples who often lived in harmony. Did you know that the ancient city of Timbuktu in Mali was once a world-renowned center of learning, with libraries containing hundreds of thousands of manuscripts? Or that the Kingdom of Benin in modern-day Nigeria produced intricate bronze sculptures that astounded European visitors? Kezlunoli. These are just a few examples of Africa's rich history and potential, a history that was disrupted but not erased by centuries of outside interference. As we move into the present day, it's clear that the effect of colonial division is still felt across Africa, but it's equally clear that Africans are working to overcome these challenges and forge a new, more united future. Indeed, overcoming these divisions is not an easy task. Colonial powers didn't just draw lines on maps, they created systems designed to keep African nations dependent and divided long after independence. One key aspect is the flow of resources. Despite gaining political independence, many African countries remain economically tied to their former colonizers. Raw materials are extracted and exported, only to be processed elsewhere and sold back at a premium. Consider diamonds. African miners risk their lives to extract these precious stones, yet most of the profit ends up in the hands of foreign companies. This pattern repeats across industries, from oil to cocoa to rare earth minerals. But it's not just economic ties that maintain division. Many former colonial powers maintain a military presence in Africa, often under the guise of combating terrorism or providing security. These bases serve as reminders of foreign influence and can be used to pressure African governments. In recent years, China has also become a major player in Africa, investing heavily in infrastructure and resource extraction. While this provides an alternative to traditional Western partners, some worry it's simply replacing one form of exploitation with another. So how does these ongoing foreign influences contribute to division within Africa? The answer is so simple. By tying African economies to foreign interests, they create competition between nations for foreign investments and aid. These can lead to a race to the bottom, where countries offer ever more favorable terms to outside powers at the expense of their own people. We see this play out every now and then. We make videos like these to educate Africans that we don't need further divisions. We have to come together. We have to work together. We have to love each other. We have to acknowledge that we have all it takes as a people to build the Africa that we all want to be proud of. And so, this brings us to a crucial question. How can Africa break free from these cycles of division and exploitation? The answer may lie not in grand political gestures, but in the everyday actions of African people. And so, as we explore throughout this documentary, the division of Africa was a deliberate strategy used by colonial powers to exploit the continent's resources and people. The effects of this division continue to be felt today, manifesting in border conflicts, economic disparities, and social tensions. But we've also seen how Africans are working to overcome these divisions, from regional cooperation in the Sahel to grassroots movement, building connections across ethnic lines. These are countless examples of Africans rejecting the artificial boundaries imposed upon them. But for those watching from outside the continent, we too have a role to play by challenging our own preconceptions, supporting African-led initiatives, and recognizing the ongoing impact of historical injustice. We can contribute to a more equitable global order. The question is not if Africa will unite, but when. And when it does, the world had better be ready for a united Africa, drawing on the strength of its people and the wealth of its resources would be a force unlike any the world has ever seen. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Akapopamwadun Splendor Ngozi. I want to say a huge thank you to every one of you for being patient. Hi, Ndioma, God bless you for holding on, for bringing on your friends and families. I am super thankful. God bless you. Bye for now.